was 2020 where the urgency was very apparent, and I thought this is the moment for Bitcoin and Bitcoin adoption going forward. Doesn't matter whether you think that moment was 2017 or whether you think it was 2020 or whether you think it was 2025. There is no shortcut. You've got to be in it for 4 years studying and person allocating, and then you've got to test that thesis and test that conviction and build that conviction for another 4 years after that. And it's a decade-long experience to build up that conviction from that first conversation about Bitcoin. I think people sometimes hope that it moves faster for them than it necessarily will. There's leaders in this industry that will change global capital markets like Michael Saylor. Businesses all around the world will start to think more intelligently about their balance sheets. That's the first choice you've got to make. Do you want to back your balance sheet with digital credit, or do you want to back it with Bitcoin?
Hey everybody, Tyler Rowe here with the BitcoinTreasuries.net podcast. Today I'm joined by Scott Ellam, the founder and CEO of XCE, the Connecting Excellence Group that is a publicly traded recruitment business built on a Bitcoin standard. Scott, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Tyler. Good to be here.
You got it, man. So I'd like to dig in first. You've got some big news with your interim filings that just dropped recently, but I'd like to dig in first to your story of building your business and, the early days of your journey as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, of course. So I founded our flagship operating business, which is called Spencer Riley, back in 2014. So that was my first business I've set up, and we're in 2026 now. We've obviously took the business public through the XCE Connecting Excellence Group PLC, which we formed to allow us to build a platform for growth that would allow us to focus on generating more revenues, more cash flows by attracting talent to Spencer Riley, the flagship operating business, but also either opportunistically now or actively in the future, bolt on other businesses into the group and bring them in onto the journey that we're on. So 2014, I set up Spencer Riley and went through the journey of being a young entrepreneur. I was in my early 20s, but I had a good start to my career as an executive recruitment consultant working for one of the larger firms in our region. And I suppose within that good start, I built up quite a wide-ranging client base and skill set. And one of the clients is probably the trigger that made me move into setting up my own business at an early stage. And that came about because I had a client who I placed with for a few months, and they rang me up with a specific assignment that was to help them acquire a business at a fast pace. So it wasn't headhunting one of the senior staff from a company. This was getting hold of the majority shareholder of a private business that had gone into liquidation and had a lot of creditors. And the client wanted to rescue the business, allow the staff to continue in their roles, allow the clients of that business to be able to receive the service they'd been promised. And that would have meant that they'd keep the clients over the long term. That was the thesis behind it. And I managed to get hold of this person who was very difficult to get hold of. And I got hold of them through the means that a headhunter would get hold of someone. I found out, we were not answering the phone and nobody in his business could get hold of the individual. So I got hold of them by finding out that they had a holiday villa abroad, ringing up to book the holiday villa, got the guy's wife on the phone, told her why I was calling. Look, I've got a client who wants to buy the business. I'm a 22-year-old or 23-year-old headhunter who works for this client, but he wants to speak to him now. We brought the client onto the phone, and within a few hours on that day, the terms were agreed and the business was bought. And this client sort of seen something in me, I think, that they wanted to try and bring me into the group of businesses that they own. So they brought me in to look at mergers and acquisitions with them and be quite proactive in that, and also to develop their ability to attract talent to the business and headhunt people to join the company and provide value to the business. And over that period, I had a lot of exposure to things that people wouldn't usually have at an early stage in their career, having gone into executive recruitment, which gave me the confidence to set up my own business shortly after, at the age of about 24, with the blessing of that person. And that really set me on the road to not just wanting to build the executive recruitment company as my kind of forever business that this is where I will be until the end of my career, and I want to build a business that's the best executive recruitment firm to join as a consultant and spend your career in. It also allowed me to sort of see that gaining those good connections could give you advantages in business and propel it forward. And quite quickly, I had a client who offered me a free office space in those early days back in 2015. So I was able to start hiring people and bringing people in to the business and building it organically. And then we've sort of moved forward, and that entrepreneurial journey, there was always a focus on the balance sheet for me and the cash reserves, and thinking, okay, we need to make sure we're building cash reserves to protect the business for the staff and protect the business for the future should something happen. And at that same time, I'm going through the Bitcoin journey from 2016 to 2020. And I'm going through that Bitcoin journey personally and studying money and understanding, the benefits of Bitcoin, the supply cap, the unconfiscatability, the transportability. And I'm personally bought into Bitcoin. And then 2020 comes and two events happen. One, we saw massive amounts of money printing, which made me worry about the cash in reserves on the business, because I know the result of that is going to be the debasement of the currency as the after effects. And two, Michael Saylor and Strategy buying Bitcoin and announcing that they were buying Bitcoin on their public balance sheet, which made me think, okay, I've got to find a way in order to protect the business for the future and for the staff in the business to back the business by Bitcoin on the balance sheet. So 2021, the business changed dynamic again, and it was okay, all surplus cash and cash generated from 21 to 25 was going predominantly into buying Bitcoin, and we were buying every day and every week through that period, but we're a private business that's a scalable business, and get to the end of that period, and that's where we came up with the strategy for going forward and for the IPO.
If you're trying to get to the top of BitcoinTreasuries.net, you need institutional infrastructure to match. BitGo is the digital asset backbone trusted by thousands of institutions worldwide. Why? It offers regulated custody, OTC trading, financing, and settlement all under one roof. They're now a publicly traded company on the New York Stock Exchange and hold a federally chartered national bank license from the OCC. For Treasury companies, it's a must call. This is the infrastructure layer that really matters. Learn more at bitgo.com. It's the best kept secret known by every true Bitcoin OG. CoinKite has been building the gold standard in private key security for years, and they just raised the bar again. The Cold Card Q is an absolute powerhouse for serious Bitcoin treasuries. We're talking a full QWERTY keyboard, air gap protections, and it's built for maximum security. The brand new Cold Card MK5, it has a massive Gorilla Glass screen and new NFC functionality for an even more seamless experience. So if your business is large or small, there's a cold card for you. Head to store.coinkite.com and use the code 6BT at checkout for 6% off. Stop cutting corners on your Bitcoin treasury. You wished for it. Bitcoin is finally on sale. And if you're sitting on BTC and want liquidity without dumping your stack, Arch Lending can make it easy. You can get USD or USDC in minutes, and your collateral stays in qualified custody. They never rehypothecate your assets. As your assets move up and down in value, you can scale your credit line instantly or pull collateral back when the market runs. If you need help, you get real humans 24/7, not bots. This is Arch Lending. Simple tiers, public pricing. You can check them out at archlending.com.
That's a really cool story. And I love that it kind of started with you getting kind of noticed for your hustle. And that's kind of defined, the business that you built is, being out there grinding day to day, day by day, and placing clients now with your business. As you realized that, Bitcoin was something you wanted to put onto your company's balance sheet, before you got into Bitcoin, did you think about sound money and how debasement was affecting you personally? And then how did you connect the dots from how, your cash that you were earning in the business was also decreasing in purchasing power over time?
Yeah, it sounds odd, but without using that terminology, I didn't think sound money and I didn't think debasement. But from a very young age, probably before I was even a teenager, I was thinking about, without knowing, I was thinking about the debasement of money, thinking about inflation and thinking about the debasement of money, because I was seeing around me I live in the UK, and in the north of the UK, it's got a history of mining towns and it's quite a working class area. And I was seeing that I was quite active in networking as a youngster. So I would be speaking to business owners and asking for work experience and asking their story. And what I intuitively identified when I was really young was that the people who were succeeding, the adults who were succeeding, were the ones who were borrowing the money from the banks to buy property and rent that property out to other individuals. And I probably had quite an early focus on like moving cash into assets that provide value and go up in value when denominated in British pounds or US dollars, and set myself up to become a Bitcoiner at quite an early age, so that I got Bitcoin quite quickly. And I was fortunate because I'd had that interest when I was younger, that I wasn't distracted by any of the other types of, dare I say the word. So yeah, it was a theme throughout my life, and it only really clicked from the point of view, this isn't just about building a safe balance sheet in your personal life, which I was also thinking the more Bitcoin I can accumulate personally and the safer financially I can try and make myself, the safer it is for the business as well, because I can always then lend back to the business. But it was that moment in 2020 and 2021 where I think most people really get Bitcoin and truly get it, when there's not just a need to get it, but an urgency as well. And I hadn't had that urgency. And it was 2020 where the urgency was very apparent. And I thought, this is the moment for Bitcoin and Bitcoin adoption going forward. Now, we all know, doesn't matter whether you think that moment was 2017 or whether you think it was 2020 or whether you think it was 2025, Bitcoin, there is no shortcut. You've got to be in it for 4 years studying and person allocating to get to a stage where you might truly understand it. And then you've got to test that thesis and test that conviction and build that conviction for another 4 years after that. And it's a decade-long experience, really, for me to sort of build up that conviction where, like, from that first conversation about Bitcoin, it's 10 years later that I have a public company that has Bitcoin on the balance sheet. And I think people sometimes hope that it moves faster for them than it
That's
necessarily will.
That's right. In Bitcoin, we famously have low tide preference, but the patience is just naturally that it's lacking for all of us. And, it's going to be exciting to see over the next 5 to 10 years what the stories are and what, how the Bitcoin Treasury industry progresses over the next decade. Can you walk our viewers through kind of some of the mechanics of taking your business, XCE, public, and some of the nitty gritty of what that entailed and how you were able to bring a Bitcoin balance sheet to public markets in Europe?
Yeah, well, I'd thought about doing it in probably 2024. I think I first sort of just ran the idea of, and to someone quite well known in Bitcoin, do you think I should take my business public? And quick conversation with someone who's ran a public company, and then a very quick thought from me on, okay, I've got staff with wages, with mortgages, with families that you want to make sure you're doing the best for them in the future, because that is ultimately the best for the business as well. And it would have been a high amount of risk that wasn't just on me at that stage. So the taking it public after Andrew went public in the UK, he cleared a path through the regulatory woods for businesses like mine, and I'm sure there are other businesses like mine who are stacking Bitcoin on the balance sheet and may have been for as long as we had and may have been for longer than we had. But as soon as he did that, I'd already sort of thought about this, but it became really sort of vivid for me in that the advantages in executive recruitment companies to holding Bitcoin on the balance sheet and the advantages for them as a PLC. I believe that together, the PLC status for Bitcoin balance sheet and an executive recruitment company, that's a powerful reinforcing effect, because strong businesses should think intelligently about the balance sheet, yes, but if you've got Bitcoin on the balance sheet, you've got PLC status and you've got a people-powered service-based business where each individual is as self-sovereign as people get within businesses, in that they have a target of revenue to generate, and some of them will exceed that target. They have modest basic salaries in our industry and high commissions based on the revenue that they've generated and the cash that's received in the bank. If you add all them three aspects together of the Bitcoin balance sheet, that type of service-based, people-based business and a PLC, and you add on top of their basic salaries, their commissions, what drives them forward on a short time frame of month to month, quarter to quarter annual earnings, and you add long-dated performance-based shares that they can build up over 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and 20 years, they're backed by operational growth they deliver. They're backed by the capital markets and Bitcoin balance sheet or Bitcoin Treasury side of the business's ability to raise equity and use financial tools or products to generate more Bitcoin per share. And they're backed by the compounding growth rate of Bitcoin. I just saw an opportunity as we were going through that stage of saying, okay, we've got a chance to positively disrupt executive recruitment here. And by doing that, attract talent to our business that we wouldn't normally be able to attract because it's competitive, to attract companies to the group and be able to turn their cash reserves into Bitcoin and their ongoing cash flows into Bitcoin, which you wouldn't normally be able to do. And at the other point, demonstrate this to our competitors and the thousands of executive recruitment companies in the UK and the thousands overseas and internationally, and say this is a model that can help your business move forward and benefit your business and benefit your staff as well. And my biggest passion is Bitcoin. So to combine my business and my passion in executive search with my passion for Bitcoin and be able to do that, that was the opportunity there, and provide value for investors and provide value for the employees and provide value to our competitors by saying, you can join on this journey or you can copy us. And if every executive recruitment company begins stacking Bitcoin on the balance sheet, it only helps us in the future as well. From a point of view, they will be more strategically aligned and more likely to want to join the group and benefit from our PLC status as well. So that journey was obviously a big learning curve, but I think we were fortunate in that we had A, path to follow, and B, that we had a 4-year history of buying Bitcoin on the balance sheet within our operating business. And that just allowed us to be able to have the conversations with the markets with some proof of work over 4 years and saying, this, we've been doing this for 4 years. We intend to do this for the long term. You can have a look. We're not selling. We're just buying on a consistent basis. We're just moving an executive recruitment company from a private business to a public business. And there was conversations with brokers in the UK. It was hard. It was challenging sometimes to allow investors to gain access at the start. And I know other businesses have been through them problems, but I think we were quite favourably looked on by the brokers because of the history and because of the operating business has clients like PwC, has clients like Deloitte, has clients like UPS Logistics, and it has clients that gave them the confidence to say, okay, we'll allow you to be able to come onto the brokerage platform. And hopefully that also allows us to build credibility over over the long term for when we're at an appropriate market cap and an appropriate stage to be able to have an easier run into the uplistings and opportunities that come once you're at that kind of scale.
Yeah, that's like a really cool story, and like that's the base case for how Bitcoin can supercharge your business, right? It can help with accessing public markets, which is great for marketing for your company. It strengthens your core operating business. It helps with employee retention, and it's just not only does Bitcoin have compounding effects of growing on your balance sheet and increasing the capital on your balance sheet, but it has compounding effects on your business. And what greater marketing tool than to be, hey, we're a Bitcoin treasury company, and hey, we're also an executive recruiter who can help place Bitcoin executives. As the space is going to continue to grow over the coming years. I want to put some numbers to what we're talking about. So big news for you. You had your first interim report, number reporting since you've been a public company. Is that right?
Yeah, that was our first interim results that went out this morning.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you run down?
Do you want me to run through them? Or I thought you were going to ask some questions on them then, Tyler. So our interim H1 numbers went out this morning. Headline numbers there are 1.2 million group revenue from the period and 0.89 million net fee income for 1st of July to December the 31st, which is up 20.3% year on year. We've had a 12.7% increase in average fee per placement of candidate with our clients. We've done a 0.78 million gross profit and then a 0.34 million operating profit for Spencer Riley, our flagship operating business. And then after that period, we did announce that the first month of H2, January, was a £250,000 record month for us. So those are the numbers. Since IPO, we held 9.28 Bitcoin pre-IPO. At the end of the period, we held 40.36 Bitcoin. And today we hold 52.42 Bitcoin. And we have the ATM facility, which we've termed, we have an accelerated placement agreement, which is an ATM facility in place. We have launched the XCE Bitcoin Bond Programme, which is the first truly Bitcoin-denominated bonds in that the conversion price tracks the Bitcoin price. And we've also prepared and been able to do the OTC QB cross-listing to help us begin to start engaging with US investors and begin to build those pipes over there. So we've had a lot happen since December. And I was interviewed just before your interview now here. I was interviewed about the results and the 20% increase, and the person interviewing me said, is this because of the IPO? And you think, well, no, actually, that period there was running up to ending December 31st. We IPO'd on December the 11th. If you can imagine, I've spent Monday to Friday in that business for a decade. And when you're preparing for an IPO and you're going for an IPO, you're less likely to be in the office with the team. And it's just incredibly, I'm incredibly proud of the team in there, because the performance that they've put in with the 20% increase is in effect them saying to me, we will outperform when you're focusing on things like an IPO, Scott. So it's been great to see that performance. Full credit is due to every executive recruitment company, consultant in the company for that performance, and the team around me and the team in Spencer Riley. And then on the Bitcoin balance sheet side of the business, the credit is due to our team there, and we've got a great team on that side. We have Sam Roberts. I don't know whether you know Sam, but Sam's the chairman and led the first British pension fund allocation to Bitcoin as part of his role as director of investment consulting at Cartwrights. And then VJ Selvin, who's ex-head of governance at Goldman Sachs and helped us design the XCE Bitcoin Bond Programme alongside Richard Byworth, a board advisor for us who was instrumental in that XCE Bitcoin Bond Programme as well. And then Angus Gladish, our CFO, who's experienced in main market listings, so was comfortable with the Aquis process and was a real strong mentor and gave us a lot of the ability to go through that process effectively and efficiently with his background and experience and obviously main market preparations experience.
Yeah, really cool to have like such a broad depth of advisors. I bet that's got to feel really good to have a team behind you that's providing that. Can you walk our viewers through basically the ramifications of your ATM facility? When do you plan to use that? And also, of course, you do have a truly Bitcoin-denominated bond program. So if you could walk through both the ATM and the bond program for our viewers, that'd be great. If you're building or managing a Bitcoin treasury, you need institutional infrastructure to match. BitGo is the digital asset backbone trusted by thousands of institutions worldwide, offering regulated custody, OTC trading, financing, and settlement all under one roof. They're now a publicly traded company on the NYSE and hold a federally chartered national bank license from the OCC. For Bitcoin treasury companies, this is the infrastructure layer that matters. Learn more at bitgo.com. CoinKite has been building the gold standard in Bitcoin private key security for years, and they just raised the bar again. The brand new Coldcard MK5 brings a massive Gorilla Glass screen and new NFC functionality for a more seamless experience. The Coldcard Q is an absolute powerhouse for serious Bitcoiners, with a full QWERTY keyboard, air-gapped, and built for maximum security. Whatever your setup, executive, Bitcoiner, Bitcoin Treasury, there's a Coldcard for you. Head to store.coinkite.com and use code 6BT at checkout for 6% off.
The dip is here, and with it, you might be thinking, is it time for me to borrow against my Bitcoin? Enter Arch Lending. They're building the most transparent borrowing experience in crypto. We're talking industry-leading rates from 8.49% when you borrow against BTC, and you receive USD within minutes. Your assets stay protected with qualified custody. There's no rehypothecation, and verifiable segregated addresses are used always. As your collateral grows, you can unlock more liquidity, adjust your line anytime, and extend your term with a single click. And with 24/7 white glove support, you're never going to feel like you're on your own. Arch Lending, simple terms, public pricing, market-leading rates at every size. You can learn more at archlending.com.
Yeah, so the ATM facility is a partnership that we have with our brokers, Ellam Capital, and that allows us to be able to issue shares into the market in order to accrete value for shareholders when we're in a high MNAV environment, high volume environment. That's when we see that as the most beneficial tool to use. So what you don't want to see is a business running to a significant multiple on the MNAV. You don't want to see it going from 7 times, 9 times, 12 times, 15 times, 20 times MNAV, and your shareholders want to see you locking in value, raising the floor and increasing the Bitcoin on the balance sheet and increasing their Bitcoin per share in that scenario. So we believed it was important to have that set up prior to the IPO in order to make sure that we can temper the MNAV and accrete value for shareholders. And then New Year's Eve, we issued the XCE Bitcoin Bond Programme and signed the first bond for 10 Bitcoin. And that is and then we settled in January with the receipt of the Bitcoin. That had a number of international investors in it, and that is a scalable bond program in that when that bond converts, we'll be able to consider looking at issuing more bonds and further tranches throughout the year and beyond. And that bond program there is a tool that we put in place in order to provide us the ability to increase the Bitcoin held in a low MNAV environment. So those bonds are sold at a 30% premium to share price, and they are 0%, 12-month maturity, and Bitcoin denominated. And by Bitcoin denominated, I mean, if the Bitcoin price, say if the conversion price is here, Bitcoin price is here, if the Bitcoin price dropped 50%, then our conversion price would also fall 50%. If the Bitcoin price fell but our share price stayed the same, or if the Bitcoin price rised and our share price outperformed, when our share price outperforms Bitcoin by 20%, we have the right to convert the bonds, and we want to lock those into the balance sheet. There are a couple of other mechanics that Richard Byworth and VJ, who predominantly led the design of the bonds, put in place. And those mechanics are always geared at increasing Bitcoin per share and making the bonds attractive to the bondholders and the investors, and making conversion attractive. So if we got to the end of the period of maturity and those bonds hadn't converted, at that stage there, we would have the opportunity to refix the conversion price, provided it is above a 1M NAV and accretive to shareholders, in order to give the bondholders the opportunity to convert into shares and allow us to put that Bitcoin on the balance sheet. So I think then the XCE Bitcoin Bond Programme is a very useful tool in that environment, and a scalable tool that we want to see ramp up.
Yeah, what made you explore that convertible model versus, the straight convertible fixed to share price model that strategy maybe started out with, Michael Saylor's company?
I think you saw over the last, it always feels like years, but probably over the last year, quite a number of Bitcoin Treasury companies use the Bitcoin-denominated convertible bonds in order to scale. And that's an incredible breakthrough. And we also we have Adam back as a key strategic investor in the business as well. So we were testing what's the most optimal way of us designing these now as kind of a version 2 of the Bitcoin denominated bonds. And it was making them truly Bitcoin denominated with the conversion price moving, because whether we're receiving Bitcoin to purchase them bonds or whether we're receiving fiat to buy them bonds and we're converting the fiat into Bitcoin, what it allows us to do is protect ourselves in different market environments for Bitcoin. So if the Bitcoin price dropped and we've got a share price, a conversion price that's quite high, the Bitcoin price drops down, that makes it unlikely that the bond's going to be able to convert. So we designed protectionary mechanisms into them in that the conversion price now follows Bitcoin, and that we are able at the end of the process to put a refix that would be beneficial to shareholders in place, that the board would decide, okay, this is the most optimal levels to work to. And we believe that that's a tool that we can use to scale up the business by working with investors who are looking for Bitcoin denominated returns with the equity boost option on top.
Really cool. You mentioned you guys have had some pretty tremendous growth here at the beginning of 2026. While you've been focused a little bit, maybe more administratively, on capital markets and getting the word out there about what you guys are doing. Do you have a team of Bitcoiners among your recruiters? Have you introduced any sort of education program for the people who work for your firm?
So we also, as a pro bono partner with the business, we have Joe Bryan, who produced What's the Problem? Have you watched that, Tyler?
I haven't seen it, no.
If you haven't, you need to watch What's the Problem by Joe Bryan. It's an incredible video on Bitcoin, and he's, I believe, one of the best educators on Bitcoin in the world. And everybody in the business has watched that video. It's a 40-minute video that gives people a real understanding of the ethos behind Bitcoin and the problem in society that Bitcoin solves. So within the business, everybody's got a pretty good awareness of Bitcoin, and some of them are on the journey and some of them are Bitcoiners. The one who I would say is potentially the most Bitcoinery, or sort of most experienced Bitcoiner and has highest levels of conviction in Bitcoin, is running the Bitcoin Executive Recruitment Division. So he has been retained on chief investment officer roles by Bitcoin investment firms. He's working on chief financial officer roles for Bitcoin mining firms, and he is engaging with Bitcoin businesses in order to secure them high levels of talent from either within the Bitcoin industry or from the traditional markets, where we're seeing a quiet demand from traditional people from traditional finance or traditional industries who have got a passion for Bitcoin. They're working at a senior level and they want to confidentially find their place in the Bitcoin industry. So we have launched in December a Bitcoin executive recruitment division that we're looking to scale as the market scales and the demand scales. And we have a Jonathan Russell running that. If anybody wanted to speak to him confidentially about looking at positions in Bitcoin or companies looking for talent in order to drive their businesses forward. And quite often a conversation like that in the business with a client might be, we need someone to fill this position that's a traditional position, chief marketing officer, chief financial officer, and we need them to get the business model and understand the business model and understand our culture, but we need them to have the experience to have listed a business, uplisted a business, or ran a business with multiple sites that are, if you can imagine, similar to data centers when you're looking at Bitcoin mining, and being able to work within the Bitcoin industry, but also have an experience of placing senior leaders at director level, partner level, and C level within professional services and business advisory. It allows us to make those approaches in a credible manner, have those conversations, and identify whether somebody is going to be either a Bitcoiner, they are a Bitcoiner, they're interested, or they're open-minded, they're willing to understand it, and they're going to be a productive conversation for that client. And we have a good instinct for that. So we've had good results, and the clients have been pleased in that industry as well.
That's really cool stuff.
Yeah, everybody's very aware of Bitcoin in the business.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, Tyler, I'm now starting our growth strategies to attract talent to the business. And I'm spending a lot of time with executive recruiters who are interested in joining the business. And I'm getting calls from competitors, if you like, or businesses in our industry who are interested in, okay, talk to me about it. You mentioned, there's an opportunity for companies to become part of the group. And they're not Bitcoiners. Quite often I'm going through the whole stages of explaining the thesis. And I think somebody said to me the other week, I've got 3 opportunities and then this opportunity. And all 3 of them, similar model, similar basic salaries, similar commissions. But this one has the growth platform, the opportunity to grow, the benefits that the other ones have, but the performance-based long-dated equity incentives, like no one else can offer anything like that in the industry. So I'm interested in it. And I think once they've had 1, 2, 3 conversations about the business model and understanding it, what it becomes is like a free option, if you like. You can spend the next 10 years of your career earning the basic salary that you earn, earning the commissions that you earn, but not locking in any of that value over the next 10, 15 years. Or you can spend it within XCE Connecting Excellence Group, where you're getting the same shorter term goals of, okay, basic salary, commissions based on the revenue I'm generating, but I'm also locking in long-term benefits to me and my family in the performance-based equity incentives that are linked to Bitcoin, capital markets, operational growth. And that's quite a powerful incentive. And they don't need to study Bitcoin too deeply to find that appealing. And they don't need to buy Bitcoin. They don't need to custody Bitcoin. They don't need to worry about losing Bitcoin or how it works. They understand the PLC status. They understand what share options are. And they understand that if I generate this much revenue, that's what I can earn. And that's what I can earn in the business over the long term if I continually do that.
That's cool. What a cool flywheel you've kind of generated built on Bitcoin. And, it's like the dividends of Bitcoin are just paying out, I think it's spades across your business. But before we wrap here, Scott, we're coming up against our time, but I'd like to get your insight and take on what Michael Saylor's been able to do with strategy and his real focus on digital credit over the past 8 or 9 months. We've seen STRC, the stretch product that pays a fixed dividend at sky high proportions, 11.5%, and he's just hammering that, buying Bitcoin. It's kind of been maintaining its peg recently. How amazed are you with what Saylor's been able to do recently?
I think it is his iPhone moment, but I think like Bitcoin and exactly what I thought in 2021 when I thought this is the moment for Bitcoin. It's strategy's iPhone moment, but we don't need it to be in everybody's savings accounts next week and in every institution next week. It will come. The momentum is building, and that is such an incredible product. And the dual flywheel of once Stretch is running at full pace, the benefits to the MSTR common stockholders will be quite something. And I was over at Strategy World, I think 3 weeks ago now, and got to meet quite a few of the team. And also, you're meeting people from Morgan Stanley, you're meeting people from Citadel, you're meeting people from TD Cowen, you're meeting lots of the leaders in our industry. And we were actually watching clients speak as well about their products that are being built on top of Stretch. And what is designed there really does solve everybody's problems without the need for them to take the brave step. And what I mean by that is, as Bitcoiners, we all know Bitcoin solves problems over the long term if you can build conviction and you can build a cadence where you're buying on a regular basis and you're holding over the long term. That's still a big leap for a lot of people. But getting 10 to 11% dividends on a monthly basis is not a big leap for a lot of people. So he's built an intelligent Bitcoin-backed mass market product that I think will change the world and change markets over the next 3 to 6 years. And yeah, he's linked the incentives. He's linked the incentive structure very well in terms of Stretch and the common stock. And I think where we look at what we've designed with XCE, we're seeing it as there's leaders in this industry that will change global capital markets like Michael Saylor. And I think that design he's put in place solves the long-term and short-term savings problem for everybody who can access it. And then businesses all around the world will start to think more intelligently about their balance sheets. And the choice becomes, do you want to hold digital credit on your balance sheet and gain a 10% return rather than holding your cash in a money market fund on your balance sheet? Or do you want to hold the underlying asset and hold Bitcoin on your balance sheet? And they're the two first questions. When those questions have been answered, the question is, how can you powerfully integrate that into your operating company to drive the operating company forward and allow the people in the business and the investors and shareholders in the business to benefit from it in an amplified manner? And I think there'll be businesses like ours that will follow and operate in businesses where the Bitcoin strategy or the blend of Bitcoin and digital credit strategy just makes the operating business more, or makes the Bitcoin treasury more credible and durable. And then the Bitcoin balance sheet, PLC structure, just makes the operating business more attractive to talent companies in their marketplace. And that's the first choice you've got to make. Do you want to back your balance sheet with digital credit, or do you want to back it with Bitcoin?
Yeah. It's going to be exciting to see more and more companies asking those questions in their boardrooms, in their C-suite level, and see how this asset grows and continues to mature. Thank you so much, Scott. Tell everyone where they can follow you online and connect with your company.
Yeah, they can follow me on X at Bitcoin Only Scott, which is BTC Only Scott. XCE Official on X is XCE Official. And there's a community on there as well. And then LinkedIn, Scott Ellam. Obviously, I'm in executive search, so I do partake in LinkedIn as well. And if anyone wants to go to our website, xce.io, and drop me an email and introduce themselves, then I'm always looking to meet with candidates, clients, people who are interested in our investment opportunities, and those who are interested in joining the group as executive recruiters, or companies who would be interested in positioning themselves to join the group in the future as well.
Great, Scott. Thank you so much. One thing I have all our guests say before they leave is stay orange.
Stay orange, Tyler. Stay orange.
Awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, the Bitcoin Executive Recruitment Hub CEO, Scott Ellam.